Okay, let me also introduce myself, how I have arrived here. I studied chemical engineering at the university and became a chemical engineer. I worked for about 2 years in a large international company, at which point I felt that this was not fulfilling to me. It was in 1970, so you can tell how old I am. And I thought, well, this cannot be the meaning of life. This must be something else, because I had no belief in anything spiritual. I just believed in matter. I was an existentialist at that time. And I decided that to leave my work and to search for a meaning in life. For what could be why are we here? What are we doing here? If we're just going to live for 80 years or 100 years and leave this physical reality and there's nothing else, then it doesn't interest me, because I don't see anything very interesting here just to live 80 years or 100 years. And so I started to search, and I searched many aspects of reality: psychology, philosophy, astrology, creativity, whatever I could find, Sufism, the various religions, and began to see that there were some underlying truths, that there were similar truths behind all of this. Come, it's okay, you can come. Have a seat over there. Okay. Okay. And I started to feel totally differently. I started to feel quite happy. Let me tell you the reasons that I found to live, actually. The first reason was the concept of evolution, that I could evolve. I could become a different person than the person that I was. And this was a challenge, to become more peaceful, more loving, happier, more productive, more creative. And so, feeling better myself and feeling gratitude towards that, I decided that I would like to share these concepts and these techniques with other people. And I started doing that in Lebanon, actually, in Beirut, where I was living at the time. I've lived a little time in America. I'm an American, but 8 years I have lived in Lebanon and 35 years in Greece. So I'm not very American. I'm more Mediterranean. But my mind as an engineer thinks in a Western way, actually. And at this time, we have quite a large center in Greece. Our classes take place in about 10 different cities. I have about 600 students there. About 10,000 people have passed through the center. I have 30 books published in Greek, and about 8 of them are here in English. You can see them later. The books which are directly related to what we will be doing are these 3. You can look at them later. These are the 3 books which are more directly related to what we will be doing this weekend. Okay, and I will show them to you later. So one reason for living was evolution. Another reason for living was creativity. I found that it's so enjoyable to create. And I don't consider creativity to be a luxury. I consider it to be a basic need. That a human being that is not creating or producing or in some way expressing himself or herself really cannot feel fulfilled. And this is why I encourage people to follow their own dream, to live according to what they really want to do. And I believe that always the universe provides. I think there's a promise from the universe. If you do what you love to do, you will be provided for. You don't have to sacrifice for the sake of making money or surviving and doing something you don't love. So that was the second reason. The third reason that I found to live was to serve. to help other people. That gave me meaning also. I felt that every time that I was able to be useful to another person, that also gave me a sense of satisfaction. Right? And the fourth was the challenge of relationships. The challenge of being able to love unconditionally, which is not easy, as you probably know. So to be able to see myself and watch my emotions, and the big challenge of being able to be who I want to be in a relationship. And I'm not just talking about spouse, I'm talking about parents and children and friends and co-workers. The challenge of being a loving person in relationships. So I found these 4 reasons. And as you can see, I decided to live. Because my idea was, if I don't find a reason to live in 1 year, I'm going to commit suicide. Okay? And so I found these 4 reasons to live, and I'm sharing these 4 reasons with other people. So I would like to start today by sharing with you some of the concepts of quantum physics. Now you say, what does quantum physics have to do with psychology and with my emotions? Quantum physics actually gives us a totally different perception of reality than what we have understood until now. Until now, we live in what we call a Newtonian world, a world based on Newtonian physics. You remember Newton, Isaac Newton, who discovered gravity, or gravity existed. He named it as gravity. And in which, in a Newtonian world, we live in a world where there are objects and beings outside of ourselves that are affecting us and that are unrelated to us, and we are the victim of that world. And that world is functioning independent of us, of our thoughts, of our beliefs, of our actions. And so we feel the victim. And feeling the victim, there's nothing we can do. There's no possibility of creating a happier reality, because our reality is being created by others. In quantum physics, we have a totally different perception of reality. When we started to investigate the atom and go deeper into the creation of the atom, we realized that there are no objects. There are only fields of possibilities. And every field of possibility becomes an object only when there is an observer. And in the same sense, we can imagine that this room and every space that we live in is a field of possibilities. And we, as observers, are causing that field of possibilities to take a specific form. So, for example, take your spouse, or your children, or your parents. These are fields of possibilities. And to a great degree, what I am receiving from these people has to do with what I believe about myself, what I believe about them, and what I believe about life. So to a great extent, I am responsible for my reality. And this is a concept which is very integral to what we're going to be working on. If you are not responsible for your reality, then there's no sense to coming to this seminar. If others are responsible for your reality, you should send them to the seminar. Isn't it? Send them, let me fix them, and then you'll have a nice reality. Okay? So there's no sense in doing any seminar if you are not the creator, if you don't have the power to create the reality that you would like to have. Okay? So this is very integral. And I will stop speaking now, and I will show you the short video explaining some of the concepts of the quantum reality, and then we will relate that to the psychological work that we're going to do. Okay? So let me get a little bit out of the way here. And you'll be able to Now, this man is a Greek man. We're going to pass. Okay, now what is he saying? This is an astrophysicist. Okay, I will explain what he said because he's speaking Greek. It'll be Greek to you. Okay. This is an astrophysicist from the University of Athens, who is also a good friend of mine, and he is teaching that there is no matter. Okay, there is only energy. I'll explain to you exactly what he's saying. That our senses cause this one energy field. The only thing that there is in this room at this moment is an energy field. And this field is indifferentiated. There's no separation in this field. Okay? It's one field. Okay? And our senses cause that field to appear as separate forms. Now, this is a scientist speaking. He's saying the same thing that the spiritual teachers were saying thousands of years ago. But now he's saying it from the point of science. In fact, the walls and this table and the floor are 99.999% empty. We are creating the sense of physical reality. It's a part of our perception of our senses, and our senses are causing us to see what is an illusion. Okay, when we leave this body, we are no longer attuned to this illusion, and the wall is not a wall, and the floor is not a floor. It's a mental creation. Now, this may be difficult to understand. I don't experience that. I walk on the floor. It seems pretty solid to me, and it seems solid to you. But this is what the scientists are telling us. Okay? Now, let's move on. This is what he was explaining. It's a creation of our senses because of our DNA. He says, if you had a different DNA, you would take that field and break it up differently. It's our DNA that causes us to imagine this field as separate forms. And he says, in this sense, I cannot talk about me and you. There is no me and you. There is just one matter, and from a spiritual sense, there is just one being. Okay? So let's move on. Oh, touched the wrong way. Okay, he's going to finish now. Everything is one. Okay, now, everything is a field of possibilities, is what it says here, until there is a witness which causes that field of possibility to take a form.
The measurement problem is this: an atom only appears in a particular place if you measure it. In other words, an atom is spread out all over the place until a conscious observer decides to look at it. So the act of measurement or observation creates the entire universe.
The act of observation creates the entire universe. Did you understand what he said? The atom is just a field spread out in space until there's an observer. This is crazy stuff, but it's science. The scientists agree on this fact, that the atom does not exist unless there is an observer. We as observers are actually creating our reality. This is an example from the movie What the Beep Do We Know? Have you seen that movie? How many have seen that movie? Yeah. If you haven't seen it, you should get it. It's about quantum physics, but it also has a little story intertwined there. It's nice. What the beep do we know? It's from What the Hell Do We Know? What the beep do we know? Okay. So what is it saying here? That there's one basketball here But that basketball, in reality, is spread out. We don't know where it is until there is an observer. When she turns around and observes, then that field of possibilities becomes an actuality. Okay? Now, this is one of the main concepts of quantum physics. Now, so there is no world without an observer.
Conscious beings can be observers, then we're intimately hooked into the very existence of reality. Without us, there would just be this expanding superposition of possibilities with nothing definite ever actually happening.
Out of millions and millions of blobs of energy and light, photons and electrons, they make up this imaginary three-dimensional solid world, which doesn't exist at all according to
An imaginary three-dimensional world which seems solid, which doesn't exist according to quantum. Now we're not talking spirituality here. So the mind it's difficult for the mind to grasp this reality, but it will help us to begin to realize that some of the spiritual truths that have been handed down throughout the years are in fact valid.
relativity or quantum mechanics.
Anytime we attempt to
Actually, matter is empty.
In all the atoms and molecules, all space within them, the particles take up an insignificant amount of the volume of the atom or molecule, the fundamental particles. The rest of it is vacuum.
look at particles beyond a certain level. A very active observation changes things.
And in addition, the more you look at individual particles, the more you realize that there is no such thing as one electron. An electron or any elementary particle exists only in relationship to other things, like other particles or the universe at large. This means that deeply enough, when you deep dive down into the nature of matter, everything we know about the everyday world dissolves. There are no objects anymore, there are only relationships. There's no locality anymore, there's no time anymore. The more you look at something in detail, and what we think of as solid matter, the less and less solid it begins to look.
The only realities we know are the ones our brain manufactures. Our brain receives billions of signals every minute, and we organize them into holograms which we project outside ourselves and call reality.
One of the central pigeonholes we use words to describe reality are phenomena inside our head. They're not out there. And most of the time this is a philosophical quibble. But when you get down to quantum physics, and this is one of the reasons that Bohm came up with the holographic idea, it starts to have real effects. And one of those is it's been discovered that if you take two subatomic particles like electrons, in certain instances, when you do something to one, it will always affect the other, no matter how far apart they are.
Well, how can this be? But what this tells us is that once matter is physically joined, even when it becomes separate, the energy is still there that's connecting it. And this is why it's important to me, because we go back far enough in time, all the particles of matter of this entire universe that are expanding were all meshed together in a single particle about the size of a green pea, is what science.
So there's two concepts here. One concept is that once two objects or particles have touched, then they are interconnected wherever they may be. And if you affect the one, the other will be affected. The other one could be at the sun, could be anywhere. Okay? So there is some kind of connection. And so whatever you do to one thing, the other is affected by it. Then he says, everything, all of the universe at one time came from one small piece of matter, if you can imagine, the size of a pea. Now this tells us what? How empty our universe is. For example, they say, what he's saying here, the scientists are saying, is if you took the Earth and all of the planets and the sun and all of the stars and this whole galaxy and then all of the other unlimited galaxies, and you remove the space the space that I talked about earlier, that 99.9%, all of the matter of the universe would be a small p. How do you say it in Turkish? Bezelye? Bezelye. Same word for Arabic. A small bezelye. All the matter of all the galaxies. It's inconceivable. But what does that tell us? It tells us that this is just all space. That actually our mind is creating the physical reality. We are causing it to appear as physical.
How come all the people can't see the same thing? I mean,
Well, this is another question. We'll go on to that in a minute. The subjectivity of seeing. Okay, that we see subjectively.
This tells us that's what the computer model suggests. If you could go into the universe today and take all the particles of matter and take out all the space in between and bring it together and compress it into the size of a single green pea, it means that you and me and every one of our listeners, we were all once part of that same particle that creates this whole universe today. And even though those particles are now separate and expanding, and studies show that they are, energetically we're all still one.
So whatever happens to one of us happens to us all. Okay?
The particle that could be two or more places or states simultaneously. And this is a very bizarre concept, and one of the hallmarks
Did you get that? A particle can exist in more than one place at the same time. In fact, they have a photograph of the one particle in 3,000 places. So what's happening here? Time and space are becoming destroyed. All our sense of time and space, which limits us so much, our perception and our creativity, are dissolving. He's saying there is no time, there is no space, actually.
What seems to happen is that particles appear and disappear all the time. So where do they go when they're not here? Now, that question is tricky.
The particles disappear and appear.
Number one.
They disappear.
An alternative universe where the people in that universe are asking the same question about those particles when they come into our universe. They say, where do they go?
Okay, so particles are appearing and disappearing. They're not even actually continuously there. Okay? Okay, we'll pass that. Here he's talking about that we break down reality into perception.
And take turning into a picture according to our own belief systems and our own unconscious belief systems as well.
We know what is going on is that light comes in through the eyes, hits the back of the retina, triggers electrochemical impulses which travel down nerve fibers to the back of the brain, where the brain very cleverly, in about a tenth of a second, puts it all together and says, this is what we...
Now, this is very important. Eyes do not see. The brain sees. It's very important. And the brain can only see by reference. Okay? So we can see something only if we have some kind of a reference here. And we construct the image in our brain, in our mind, according to our previous experiences, which means what? We never see the present. We only see the past. We see the past. We can't, well, the future is difficult also to say. But what I mean is that we see things in terms of our experience. Okay, and we project our experience on what, so if you see a person, you don't see him for the first time. You remember everything that went on between you. You remember everything they told you about him. You remember everything about the category that you place him, everything about that you know about men, or about women, or about Americans, or about Turks, or about Greeks, or there's a whole subset of information here which is not allowing us to see what is there. And especially in our close relationships, we have already created a number of preconceptions about who the people are that are around us and how they will react. And we do not allow them to change. When I have a preconception about someone, we are actually sending them a message: behave as I have preconceived you to behave. And that person may change in relationship to other people. And if we have a preconception about ourselves, write it down for a minute. If we have a preconception about ourselves, well, I can't do that, or I'm not able to do this, then we create that reality. So we're not living the present. What we're doing is actually taking the past and projecting it onto the present. Let's continue a little more.
Well, you're creating your own reality tunnel. That doesn't mean you're creating reality. Out of reality, whatever that is, out of the infinite flux of energy, you're creating your own reality tunnel, and most people aren't aware of it. Most people aren't aware of it.
Everything is one. Yeah.
Imagination of ourselves from how our minds perceive.
My illusion comes from my mind.
My illusion comes from my mind. Your illusion comes from your mind.
Do not need to sort
We don't all search anywhere else for the source of illusion.
Illusion is in the mind.
We cannot find the source of illusion because your illusions come from within your mind. We try to perceive at the ultimate level of reality, and we search for any kind of method. For example, new technology, atomic power, etc. But search as we might, we cannot perceive the ultimate level of reality using these mechanisms. The ultimate level of reality is fundamentally empty
We cannot find
and not observable using these scientific methods.
Okay. We have decided to have
The table, I mean,
we have decided to have well, we don't see the same thing exactly. And someone who has had extremely disturbing experiences could see something totally different. It would have an illusion. You could have illusions. People have illusions. But each of you is seeing me differently based on your different experiences. With men, with American, with teachers, with father figures, whatever. I don't know. Every one of you is doing something different in your mind with me and what I'm saying. And some of you are bored, and some of you are interested. And so no one here is actually experiencing the same reality. We have to distinguish between what is happening and reality. So what is happening here is that we are talking, I'm presenting you some material, but no one here has the same reality, because reality is what is going on in here. And that each of us is creating. Okay, so we are agreeing that this is the table and this is a projector, okay? So there are some things that we have a common agreement on, but the internal reality we are experiencing is totally different. If 5 of you go to a movie, did you all experience the same movie? When you discuss it afterwards, do you all agree on what you saw, or do you have different opinions, different feelings?
I understand you.
Yeah.
Physically, I'm talking about.
Physically, we have agreed to do
Like
this.
you're tall, you have a beard.
We have agreed to do this. We have agreed to create this stage for the evolutionary process, to see if we can remember our true nature while in these bodies. The bodies are temporary. The consciousness which is expressing itself through these bodies is eternal. You are eternal. Your real self. But your real self is now expressing itself through this mind and this body, and you're perceiving things in a subjective way. None of us perceives anything in the exact same way. This woman had a question.
Yeah, I would like, you said that you see according to your own experiences.
Yes.
But what I would like to ask, is it only our experiences or the experiences which passed from our ancestors through our DNAs? Is it only
That is a factor. It is a factor. I, however, believe that we choose our DNA. That's another question. As souls, we choose our DNA. I believe as souls we choose our parents. And we choose our nationality. And you choose your gender, if you're going to be female or male. And what kind of body you're going to have, and what sensitivities and what fears you're going to have. All of these, I believe, we choose before coming into these bodies. This is something we can discuss perhaps tomorrow at greater length. I think it's a little early to discuss that. I think that we are more affected by our own previous actions than we are affected by the DNA of our ancestors. Okay? Yeah, I believe that we are more affected by our own personal choices. And here I would have to mention that I believe in reincarnation. Okay, so if you believe in reincarnation, I'm not saying that you need to believe. You can get along well in life without believing it. But if you believe it, the cause of your reality is not the DNA of your ancestors, but your actions in your previous lives. That is this is what you're bringing in. Okay, so it's not so much the DNA of your ancestors as it is your own personal choices and beliefs in the continuum of your experience on the physical level. But we can discuss this in more detail.
But the complex field.
It's less complex actually than the other, because what I'm saying is that no one else is responsible. That you are totally responsible, and we'll get into this. And there was one more, yes.
Then, according to quantum physics, there's nothing called death.
No, there's no death. Because there's no actual separate physical beings or matter. Everything is just one energy field. And we are causing this energy field to take these forms. But we can discuss death more later on. Okay, let me give you an introduction as we continue. Okay. Now, so what have we learned here? That there is an energy field. It is undifferentiated. It is neutral. It is neither good nor bad. And it can take any form that we give it. Okay? And we are causing, with our belief system, this energy field to take form. Now, what are the factors causing the specific events? Now, I'm going to separate events from reality. Events are not reality. Reality is what I do with the events. Okay? So each of us has a different reality with the same event. For example, I have worked with families with 4 children of the same parents, similar DNA, receiving similar behavior from the parents, and creating 4 different realities. One getting stuck completely, another becoming Superman, and the other somewhere in between. Okay? So it's not what the parents were doing, it's not the DNA, it's what that soul did with that. Okay. And I think this is very important. What I do with, what we could say that life hands you some cards when you are born, but what you do with those cards is your own creation. Okay? Now, what are the factors that are creating the events of our lives? The first factor is the law of cause and effect. The law of cause and effect is accepted by all religions and all philosophies. Cause and effect. Yes. The Indians call it karma. Okay. But it's not an Indian concept. All religions accept the fact that if you behave in a certain way, and if you think in a certain way, and if you speak in a certain way, you will receive different kinds of results. Isn't it this way? Okay. So one aspect of my reality today is all of my previous thoughts, emotions, choices, behaviors, and what I'm experiencing today is the result of my previous actions. So some things happening in our lives today will be the result of cause and effect. If our health is not good, maybe we didn't eat properly. If our relationships are not happy, maybe we weren't behaving as lovingly as we could have. Okay?
There's no time. What's previous?
Okay, this is a very good question. There is no time in the ultimate reality, but we have created this time and space. And so, in fact, there is no cause and effect out of time. And what you really are, as a soul, as a spirit, is not experiencing any effects. Okay? But as a personality, you are experiencing the effects. Okay, so we have to separate the part of ourselves that is out of time and space, which is spirit, and the part of ourselves that is in time and space, or thinks it's in time and space, anyway, believes that it is, and that is experiencing the results of the causes. Okay? Of your previous actions.
What's previous time that I'm making? If there is nothing.
Yeah, but I'm telling you.
The ultimate existence.
Yes.
If you will name here the multiple existence.
Yes.
Time and space is something can be considerable for this reality.
For this
multiple
reality.
Existence level.
That's what I'm saying.
Because the question is coming from another.
Yeah,
level.
but yeah.
So there's no answer to that in the multiple existence level.
To your ultimate self,
cannot
there is no time and
time
space.
or
Okay? I think you can understand that. It's not difficult to understand. I mean, you came today, you came here today at 10 o'clock, so you know about time and space.
I don't say that I don't know.
Okay, so in time and space, as long as you are focused on that, and as long as you are functioning in that, that part of you, which is imaginary, is experiencing those results. There's a part of you that's not. I'll give you an example. There's a light. Okay, there's a projector. Okay, we have a projector here, and in the projector is a light. Okay, and in front of the light, different images were appearing and causing those images to appear on the screen. Okay, now before the images, the light never changes. It's one white light. Nothing that happens on the screen affects the white light. If people are killing themselves on the screen, that light doesn't have any effect. If people are loving each other on the screen, there's no effect on the light. The light is untouched. So there is a part of us that is untouched. It is divine. Okay? It's untouched by what's happening in time and space. But that part of us which is focused on time and space and believes that it is experiencing those experiences based on previous actions. Right? So one factor which is creating our reality is cause and effect. The second factor is our present belief system, what I believe now. And this is called the law of attraction or the law of mirroring. That people mirror back to us and life mirrors back to us the way that we think. If I fear rejection, I will attract rejection. If I fear separation, I will create separation. If I fear failure, I will manifest that. So the way that I think, in many ways, affects the events that will happen. I am creating them by the way I think. Now the problem here is that it really is insignificant what I think consciously. And this is a big problem. Because the subconscious is 1,000,000 times more powerful than the conscious. That is, the conscious mind can process 40 bits of information in a second. The subconscious, 40 million bits of information. It's like you've got a go-kart here, a small cart, and you've got a train. So if I start doing positive thinking, okay, I'm going to get this, and the subconscious is not in agreement with that, because it believes that we don't deserve that, or we can't have that, then it really doesn't, all that positive thinking is not going to have very much effect. And this is why we'll be learning this weekend a method to help the subconscious be aligned with what we want. Okay? So what is most important is what happens in the subconscious. In the subconscious, I'll explain to you in a minute how much has been affected by the childhood experiences. And that's why one of the seminars that I suggest that we can do in the future here is healing the inner child. You'll see a number of seminars, and by the end of the day, I'd like you to hand that in and tell me what you're interested in. The third factor, which you won't find in most books, is what I call the soul choices. Soul choice. S-O-U-L, not S-O-L-E. Okay, so I have chosen as a soul to learn specific lessons. Okay? And depending on the lessons I have learned, I will have made contracts with other souls, or with my body, or with life itself. For example, if I want to learn self-acceptance, I will make a contract with my mother to reject me. I will make, if I want to learn self-sufficiency, I will make a contract with all the people in my life not to support me, so that I can have the opportunity to learn that lesson. Because if everyone loves me and supports me, I don't have the need to develop self-acceptance or self-sufficiency. If I choose in this life to learn forgiveness, then I will have made a contract with someone to do me harm, so that I can then have the opportunity to become a larger person and to forgive. Okay? So this is what I call soul choices or soul contracts. So you could do some kind of exercises to find the soul choices. But the thing is this, it doesn't matter. The cause doesn't matter. The lesson is always the same. And the lesson is, how can I be happy in this reality? Okay, so whether it's a karma, or whether it's a soul choice, or whether it's a reflection of my present belief system, the question is, what is my lesson here? And basically there are two lessons. One lesson is how to be happy with whatever is happening, and the second lesson is how to change what is happening. Change it externally. Okay, so we have always these two lessons. So if anything that is not as you want it to be, for example, your spouse, or your children, or your parents, or your work, or your appearance, or your health, or your financial situation, whatever it might be, there are just two lessons. How can I be happy with this as it is, and how can I change it? In fact, you have this sign outside, the Serenity Prayer, which says, God, give me the power to change what I can, the peace to accept what I cannot, and the wisdom to know the one from the other. Okay? So this is all life is about, really. Life's challenge is happiness. There's no other challenge. If I'm not happy, then I'm forgetting something. I have something to learn. If I'm not happy, I have something to learn. The whole process of life is coming to a state of happiness. And happiness, no happiness actually can ever be based on external circumstances, because the external circumstances will always change. And they'll never be perfect. There's this wonderful teacher called Ken Kais. He's written a number of books, and he's paralyzed, his hands and his arms. He has no function in his hands or feet. And he teaches happiness. And he says, he talks about the mosquito effect. And he says the mosquito effect is this: if there are 10 mosquitoes in the room, and you manage to get rid of 9 of them, we won't say how you got rid of them. You got rid of 9 of them, and there's one left, you still won't sleep. Right? Okay. So if you have 10 desires and you satisfy 9 of them, you still won't be happy. Because you won't say, okay, 9 out of 10, that's great. I can be happy without the 10. Okay? And if you have 10 people in your life and 9 of them love you and 1 of them rejects you, you won't say, oh, okay, I got 9 out of 10, it doesn't matter. You will be always thinking about this one, why doesn't this guy like me? And what do I have to do to get him to like me? Yeah? This is the way the mind works. It focuses on what we don't have. Okay? And he says something else. He said, and we're talking about a man who is paralyzed, okay? He can't brush his teeth. He can't walk. He can't drink water by himself. And he says, when you worry about what you don't have, you lose what you have. Because really we have something only when we can appreciate it. If we have something and we're not experiencing that, but we're experiencing what we don't have, it's like we don't have the other stuff. Okay, we don't have what we actually have. And this is...
What was the name? I missed the name.
Ken Keyes. Ken Keyes. Keyes. You can find his books on the internet. Okay. So these are the 3 aspects of the creation of what is happening around us. Cause and effect, soul choices, and the mirroring, the effect of... There's also another law here. There's the mirroring effect, there's a law of attraction, and there's a law of what I call sympathetic vibration. Sympathetic vibration is a law of physics, and it has to do with music. If we have 2 pianos here, okay, or 2 guitars, and I hit a certain note on one, only the note on the other piano or guitar, which is tuned to the same frequency, will be seriously affected and will start to vibrate. Okay, so what does that mean? That is, the effect of other people on us happens only through sympathetic vibration. That someone is negative doesn't cause our negativity. Our negativity is caused by the part of ourselves which begins to vibrate, our fear, our self-rejection, our guilt, okay, our ego, and only if those exist will we be affected by the negativity. There are some people who are very sensitive. They, well, I can't go, when I go into a room, I sense the negativity of the people there. And I explain that it's not the other people's negativity. It's the part of yourself that's being energized or activated. And you can dismantle that. You can go into yourself and say, okay, what is the fear here? What is happening that is causing me to feel this way? Okay?
It's like mirroring.
It's like mirroring, but it's called sympathetic vibration. Yes. Okay. Now, as I explained earlier, this is not our reality, though. This is what is happening around us. Our reality is created by how we interpret all of that. Okay? And how do we interpret all of that? Through our belief system. Okay, so each of us is interpreting those events. You will know people that are giving a tremendous amount of importance to something that you realize they do not need to give importance to, right? For example, they may be giving so much importance to their appearance, or to some fear, or to the opinion of another person. And they're destroying their own lives by giving so much importance to that. And we will be doing the same thing. So each of us is subjectively creating our reality with what is happening. Now, I would like to talk to you about 4 belief systems, about 4 categories of beliefs. We said our reality is being created by our beliefs, how we interpret things. Our beliefs attract realities, and our beliefs interpret realities. So we are jailed, we are imprisoned by our beliefs. And there's a very special thing about beliefs. We choose to see what we believe. And we cannot see what we cannot believe. Do any of you know people who are loved by you or others but cannot see that love? They can't believe it. They are loved. Or they are good people, but they can't see that because they were told they weren't good people. Okay? So our belief system, our perception is very selective. It allows to go through only what our belief system agrees with. We see what we believe. And we do not see what we cannot believe. So, what are those 4 categories of beliefs? The first category is what I would call our emotionally charged traumatic experiences. Okay, some of you here will have had an emotionally charged traumatic experience with something in your life. Not everybody does. Some people have many, other people have few. Okay? Emotionally charged. For example, if someone attacked you, or beat you, or a dog bit you, or you lost a loved one, or someone shouted at you, okay? A traumatic experience, okay? When this traumatic experience is recorded into the subconscious, it creates what we call the fight or flight mechanism. Fight or flight. I'm going to fight or I'm going to run, okay? One of the two. So when something happens today that triggers that, then that doesn't pass through my conscious brain. That passes through my lower brain and creates heartbeat, a dry mouth, adrenaline, okay? And I have this fear, and I could even have a panic attack. Most panic attacks are from this kind of thing, okay? So this is an automatic process which happens and doesn't go through my thinking. I don't think about it. I react emotionally and very quickly. Fortunately, now these are very difficult to deal with in psychology, but they're very easy to deal with energy psychology. With EFT, how many of you know EFT? Okay. EFT, okay. With EFT and TAT and some other methods of energy psychology, I have seen such fears dissolve in one session. Why? Because it doesn't have many roots. It's just one experience. There's an emotional charge. There's no logic in it. The person does not still believe that he's in danger by dogs. Okay? It's just that one memory, and if we discharge that with energy psychology, it disappears. Okay? So this is very important, and we will learn EFT this weekend, and this can be used for yourself and others. How many of you are working with others also? Good. Okay. So you will find this very useful. Okay? And how to help them get free. This is very useful for emotional charge. Any kind of traumatic experience, from war, rape, sexual assault, thievery, any kind of traumatic experience responds quickly to EFT. And I'll explain why later. The second belief system is our false childhood assumptions, the false childhood programming. Okay? Now, the child has a tendency to believe that it's always at fault. For example, if it doesn't receive love, its only conclusion is, I don't deserve love. And I'm not going to have love. If the parents are angry, I must be at fault. If the parents don't pay attention to me, I don't deserve attention. Okay? I'll never forget the time that I was working with a young woman whose father was an alcoholic. And he would beat her when he came home from work. And when I did a regression with her to go back to that experience, and she remembered this experience of her father beating her, I asked her, well, what do you feel? And I was waiting to hear injustice, pain, anger. And she said something which really affected me. She said, I believe I deserve it. Now, she did nothing to deserve it. But the child cannot understand that. Children feel responsible for their parents' divorce. They feel responsible for their parents' illness, for their parents' death. I remember working with one woman who could not open to love because her father died, and she took that as a rejection. She said, well, he could have lived, and his choice to die is a rejection. Okay? And then after that, we had to work on her ability to open up to love in a relationship. So these are the false childhood assumptions. They have to do with, first of all, with self-worth, that either I am not worthy, or less worthy, or worthy under certain conditions. If I'm smart, if I'm perfect, if I'm pretty, if I do what other people want me to do, if people accept me, okay? I am worthy only under certain conditions. And if that child was born as a female in a culture which saw the female as less than a man, then that program is going to be there. And it's going to have to be worked through. And if that child was born to a family which didn't want another child, and that child was somehow a burden, and that child experienced that as an embryo or as a young child, then that too usually creates the sense that I don't have the right to be happy in life. So all of these can be worked through with energy psychology and other methods that we'll be speaking about. Okay. The third belief system is our evolving conscious belief system. That is the part of you that came today, that is learning, which is reevaluating. All of science is an evolving conscious belief system. At one time, science said the earth is flat. I think there's still a club of about 500 people that continue to believe that it's flat. At one time, the science said the sun goes around the earth. Okay, at one time science said, well, there's Newtonian physics, and now it's saying, no, it's quantum physics. Okay, so it's continually reevaluating. And this is what we need to do, to reevaluate our image of ourselves, to who we are, our image of men, of women, of the purpose of life, of why things happen. Okay, so there is this process of the conscious system. Now this system is able to see reality in a different way, but as I mentioned earlier, the subconscious belief system is overpowering it. So even though I know I am worthy, and I am a good person, and I am safe, my subconscious causes me to feel the opposite under certain situations, okay? And the last belief system is what I call the spiritual belief system, or spiritual intuition, in which we believe things that we cannot see. For example, I believe, many of you believe that we are immortal, but do you see that immortality? For example, I have the belief that there is justice, that there behind injustice there is a higher justice, but we don't see that justice. Okay. So there are certain beliefs, spiritual beliefs, which enable us to see things differently. We can't prove them with science, although science is approaching to prove that. But it causes us to see things differently. So, okay, something is happening, okay? We talked about the three factors of what's happening. That's coming in, and it's passing through these four filters. If it manages to go through the first filter, and doesn't activate a fear reaction, then it comes to the second. When it comes to the second, if it doesn't energize one of my false childhood programmings, it comes through and I perceive it with logic or from a spiritual point of view. Even though I have the logic and I have the spiritual point of view, if one of the previous systems are activated, then I lose all of my logic, all of my reasoning, and my spiritual perception. I'm lost in this emotional reaction. And this emotional reaction causes me to make wrong choices in my life, which have a certain effect on my life. Okay? So, is there something that you would like to ask about this basic introduction about the four causes of what's happening and the four causes of how we perceive what's happening?
Do you want to say at the end of the day that the belief system is detrimental for creating our reality spontaneously?
Our belief system prevents our spontaneity, is that what you're saying?
Yes, and plus it's a bad thing for living the life of fulfillment.
Well, it depends on the belief system. But in general, we are here to reevaluate our belief system. Eventually, we could probably live without a belief system. But until then, it's a matter of reevaluating and upgrading the belief system. Letting go of any beliefs that are limiting our happiness, our peace, or our love. So every time I'm not peaceful or happy or loving, I need to ask, okay, why? What is the belief? And behind the belief, I will find what we will call an attachment. Every pain is the result